Hello everyone, yassaz, merhaba, and welcome to From Root to Vine. For this episode, we're on location for a 2-day extravaganza at the Cypriot Wine Festival and Business Expo, which took place back in June. The Cypriot Wine Festival is the biggest global Cypriot event outside of Cyprus and has been a staple of the community here in the UK for the past 40 years. Through live music, dance, traditional cuisine and wine, it offers a perfect insight into the wonderful vibrancy and warmth of Cypriot culture. It also serves as a necessary reminder of the importance of coming together to ensure our heritage continues to thrive in the UK. All of the conversations you will hear discuss diaspora Cypriot identity. Whilst I was joined by a diverse group of guests, all with unique stories to tell, one thing remains the same throughout. Being Cypriot is cemented in uniqueness and love, and pride for our roots is at the heart of it all. I couldn't think of a more perfect place for our first live podcast event, and it was a real privilege to be part of it. Hi Laz.
Hello.
Welcome to From Root to Vine. Welcome to the Cypriot Wine Festival.
Thank you very much for having me.
Of course, thank you for being here. I'm really excited to chat with you. I'm excited for this conversation because it's a lot of what we're going to talk about I know nothing about, and I've done a lot of research and it's so interesting. So it's really exciting to hear about your work and what you do and how it is in some ways connected to your Cypriot roots. So you're an expert in the science of herbs and healing, medical plant scientist, herbal expert, holistic therapist and educator, bridging the gap between science and natural medicines.
That's me.
That is you. You have
I feel a bit awkward calling myself an expert, but it's what I do.
Are. So you have an MSc in medicinal natural products. You're now a medical plant researcher at Kew Gardens, an editor for the Academic Journal of Herbal Medicine, a science teacher of herbalism, and you've founded your own platform, Laz The Plant Scientist, where you also sell your own products. That's an amazing CV. It's really amazing.
Thank you.
First of all, tell me a little bit about kind of your Cypriot roots, your connection to Cyprus, and your relationship with your roots growing up.
To be honest with you, my parents are both from Cyprus. My mum's from Limassol, dad's from Famagusta, so we haven't been back there. But every year we would go home and we'd go to the village and I'd spend a month there.
Yeah.
And I went Greek school. I was forced to go. I used to moan so much at the time.
Most people are.
But I'm so grateful. And it was only when I grew older that I actually grew to appreciate what it means to be Cypriot and how lucky we are to have this gorgeous little island in the Mediterranean to call it home. I love the language. I love the food. I love our people. I love how fiery and loving and generous we are. I've even grown to love having a hook nose.
Me too. Yeah, it's the thing I hated the most. Now it's one of the things I'm trying to love the most.
Oh, absolutely. I love it. And now, actually it was during COVID when things calmed down a bit. I booked myself a month because, as you can see, I'm very, very busy and it can get quite a lot sometimes. And I booked myself a month in Paros. I got myself a little Airbnb on the beach. It was the first time I'd gone to a Greek island, or Greece. And I've never felt so grounded and rooted in my life, being around Greek people, Greek music, the food, the culture, the hospitality, seeing people dancing and all of that. It was just incredibly grounding for me. And there's just so much I love about being Cypriot. And I feel very honoured to be doing the work I'm doing at Kew Gardens, to be researching our medicines of our ancestors and carrying that forward now. So,
Absolutely. Lovely. So your work that you do now is obviously very much centred on nature and the natural world and healing and all of that great stuff. Have you always been connected to that? Have you felt like an affinity to nature and healing? And how has your relationship with nature and the work you do now been influenced by your Cypriot roots, if at all?
Good question. So, I've always loved nature growing up. I don't think I loved it more than anybody else because I think everybody loves it so much, really. It's really rare that you'll meet someone who's not obsessed with it. But my real passion and calling for it came when I was 16. I had a dream about a name and I woke up the next day and I couldn't forget the dream. So I Googled the name.
Wow.
And it came up with this guy in India who'd set up camps for thousands of people merging biotechnology and herbal medicines. And it just came to me as a flood of light. This is what I'm going to do with my life.
Oh my God.
To try and bridge the gap.
Yeah.
And then since that, it's been such a beautiful path because I did my degree in biomedicine, did a master's in medicinal natural products and phytochemistry, but the healing gifts that have been given to me on this path, because I am learning about medicinal plants and nature and all of these things, it's very clear to me now that spending time in nature, connecting with nature is fundamental to live a well life. And sometimes you can do all the meditation, all the exercise, everything you want in the world, but really it's just something you still feel a bit heavy. Yeah. When you get to the forest or you get to the beach, that extra layer comes off, and I feel like as Londoners, we are in nature deficit disorder.
Absolutely.
And I know so many people now going back to Cyprus now. I don't want to go back to London.
Yeah,
because
totally.
it's a life where nature is accessible. You go for a walk on the beach after work, and Cyprus is gorgeous.
It's beautiful.
It's gorgeous.
It's so beautiful.
I kind of want to do it. I want to go to Cyprus as a tourist, because whenever I go, I'm like seeing my theas and my cousins and all of that, and I love that. But I'd love to like see more of the nature side of it and the mountains, and it's just such a stunning place. So
yeah, absolutely. I wanted to ask a little bit about the relationship, or maybe the transition from like biomed, which I think people understand as like the big S science, to more of like natural science and healing, because I think a lot of people have the assumption that they're like separate, and people can't, I guess, do both, quote unquote, do both, and that they're very much like different sciences. So what was that transition like in terms of merging the two, and how do they like coexist together?
It's a great question, thank you. So whilst I was at uni, I trained as a massage therapist, and I also trained in hypnotherapy, because we need the mind to heal as well. And it was very scientific, the biomedicine course. I then went on to do my master's in medicinal natural products and phytochemistry, so that was very much about how to put the plants in the lab, about indigenous medicines, quality control, all of these things. And since then, I've been going more into the herbalism world, which is kind of a different craft, but it's a myth that herbalism isn't scientific. It's very, very scientific.
Right.
I teach pharmacology at a herbalism school, and they do learn a lot about phytochemistry of the plants, the medicine, the biology of the body. But the main fundamental differences between normal science or pharmaceutical science and herbal science is that it's reductionism versus holism. So with pharmaceutical science, they break everything down into tiny, tiny pieces. They'll get the one active compound out of the plant, and that's it, patent it and move on. And you also only target one part of the body. So if there's something wrong with your liver, they'll target one receptor in your liver. Whereas with plant medicines, it's a lot more complex, because in an extract, you have hundreds, if not thousands of molecules. And what's beautiful about it is our bodies are biologically primed to actually work with plant medicines. We naturally digest them, we naturally absorb them. The plant molecules fit a lot better onto our cells than pharmaceuticals actually do, which is why they're safer as well a lot of the time. And also the other thing with herbal medicines and the difference between that and normal science is it's a lot more holistic. So if you're struggling with your mental health, you might go to a GP and they'll give you Prozac to increase your serotonin. Fine, that's great for some people. Whereas a herbalist will say, okay, how's your gut health doing? Because a lot of your serotonin is stored in your gut. And do we need to cleanse your blood and support your liver and detox you? And are you actually getting enough time in nature? And how are your relationships? And they'll take a holistic view of you and treat different parts of the body, treat you as a whole rather than the zoomed in. Both are brilliant. Both have their pros, both have their cons. But for me, I love herbal medicines because it's not just about symptom relief, but it's about bringing healing and strength and empowerment overall, and it's safe and it works so well.
Absolutely. Thank you for explaining that. That's really, really, really interesting. And I think so great that people like you, obviously it's a huge field, but I often feel like when you're not part of it, there's often quite a lot of stigma that like, oh, it's all like, you know, this airy-fairy stuff that doesn't work, and people just like, you know, this glorified like thing that people try to sell. So it's really, really good to hear from an expert who's done the work in terms of the study and, you know, knowing the ins and outs of it, to make that distinction. I find that really interesting.
Thank you. And I think what I'd also point to is how significant culture is for influences our decisions around medicine. The fact that people in the UK sort of view herbal medicines as airy-fairy, it's a cultural quirk. We're the odd ones out in the world. A lot of countries, even more economically developed countries like Germany, Switzerland, they revere plant medicines because they know they work really well. But over here, pharmaceuticals are the one. There's a long history behind it, which I can tell you if you want, but I don't want to give you a long history lesson. But the stamping out of herbalism has been happening for the last 500 years. And it's just led to a big unconscious cultural bias against plant medicines, when really there's a lot more to healing than pharmaceuticals alone. I view health and well-being as a tree. Pharmaceuticals is one of the branches. Nutrition is another. Time in nature is another. Herbalism is another. But now all we're focusing on is pharmaceuticals. And the reason I find that problematic is because, don't get me wrong, they can be fantastic, but sometimes they don't work. They have a lot of side effects. Pharmaceuticals are the third leading cause of death worldwide.
Wow.
Yeah. And so we can't just rely on them for all of our healthcare. And especially for things that we can treat ourselves. Like, we should be using these things carefully. They're very powerful, and we shouldn't waste or squander them. Like the antibiotics crisis, we're using antibiotics all the time.
So true, yeah.
And now we're running out of antibiotics because the bacteria are evolving so fast. Whereas if we boosted people's immune systems, or also worked with plant antibiotics, because don't forget, plants are living organisms that have been designed over thousands of years to kill bacteria themselves. They work really well. We need to merge the worlds for optimum health and well-being.
That's so interesting. And what you said about the cultural element, I think is so true, and it's so evident in the UK, and I think draws a lot of similarities with like the US as well. I wanted to ask what your like Cypriot heritage, how it might have influenced it, because obviously Cypriots are so connected to the land in terms of like historically, and I grew up, even though I'm like a 90s baby, I didn't grow up like in a Cypriot village, but I grew up with like the natural remedies that my geia would have at home, and I think that was very much part of like those generations. So how has that influenced how you view it?
Influenced massively, I think. First and foremost, because I didn't have to overcome any barriers for me to believe that they work. If you're coming from a background where people aren't using these stuff, there would be so much subconscious things that you'd have to move past. Whereas me, I grew up with gliganison. If you've got a problem,
God, it's always
do you know what I mean? And all of these different herbs, which are fantastic. And also, I grew up in London, but I say we also grew up in Cyprus, in the village, on our land, with my theas were still growing the food. They still are now, all of that. So it was very much a part of us, and I listened to their tales. My mum was one of 10 girls.
Wow.
And they all got born in that village, apart from my mum was the first one born in the hospital.
No way.
Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing.
But my yaya...
10 girls.
10 girls, yeah. And I got my yaya, after having the babies, she would steam herself with eucalyptus and clear and all of these remedies, olive leaves, been shown to be as effective as captopril for blood pressure.
Wow.
Because they cause the veins to dilate. It's called vasodilation, so it lowers the blood pressure. They were using these remedies already, and I grew up with tales of my theas telling me about how they worked with the land, how they preserved all the food, how everything, even the glija, nothing went to waste. Nothing went to waste. And I really honour that, and I think we should return back to that, because that's pure wisdom, It
is. It really is. There's nothing more like especially you said your mum's one of 10 girls, especially Cypriot women in the village, they hold so much knowledge and wisdom. And I think what I love about it as well is that where everything is coming from, because all of the stuff you're ingesting, with food or whatever, where it's being grown, where it's coming from, it's like from the land, it's a good resource, and it feels like nourishing, which is so missing obviously in like the culture we live in the UK especially.
Absolutely. And I think, well, two things. So firstly, one of the major problems I think we have with healthcare over here is that we wait until crisis point, until we go to the doctor and they say, yes, something's wrong, or no, it's not, here's a pill. Whereas herbal medicines Some things you should 100% see a herbalist about. If you've got complex conditions and you can't treat them yourself, it's not as simple as ordering a supplement. But a lot of things, you can take your power back and make your own medicines. It's exactly what our yayas and bapus were doing.
Yeah.
And what I love about it is, say, you know, our families, they cook with love.
Yeah.
You can make your medicines with love, and it's a whole holistic ritual, you know. It's beautiful. It's just enhances our quality of life, and it makes our day-to-day easier. And it means that when someone is struggling or suffering, you don't just go, oh, I hope it comes better. You can actually help.
Yeah, you can actually, that's so true. I actually watched, you made a video on Instagram where you spoke about how our healthcare now is very much, it fights the crisis as opposed to preventative healthcare. And I was like, that is so true. Like, whenever you go to the doctor, and again, it's complex issues with the healthcare system, but it's never to prevent something or because you think you're in the early stages of something. It's because you've reached crisis point and it's like, quick, what's gonna heal me? Yeah, that's so true.
And it's the way that we treat the land is the way that we treat our bodies. So now with global warming, it's at crisis point. We really need to do something. Do you cut down all the trees and then sort it out, or do you stop cutting down the trees? And it's the same thing with medicines as well. Do you wait until it gets to the point where you actually cannot deal with it anymore? Or do you learn and implement things from before? Yeah,
absolutely. Well, you said kind of it's about how we treat the land. What do you think the land can teach us about ourselves and about who we are when you're truly connected to it?
Oh my God, it is where you find your solace over and over again. Our mind plays tricks on us, and we live so much in our heads. And when you get back to your land, it's when you can calm, ground into your body. You can hear the birds. You can feel the dirt beneath your feet. You can take everything in and be more like the actual animals that we are. Yeah. We forget that we are just primates at the end of the day. And also teaches us about the cyclical and seasonal nature of things. We all have our own emotional seasons within us. You know, we have our highs and we have our lows. But we're sort of taught this paradigm that we go forward, and that's it. And that once you're healed, that's it. And there's one thing that's going to save you. It's not how it works. We have seasons of cycles. When you work with the land and you spend more time there, you accept that's a flow of nature, and you can accept those cycles in yourself as well, and empower yourself with tools to be able to facilitate a faster cycle, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. How do you feel when you're in Cyprus and you're connected to the Cypriot land?
I miss it so much. Like, I can't tell you, my body is like
craving.
I
feel the exact
same.
Home.
I haven't been since before pandemic.
Yeah, me too.
And I can feel that need. Even being here today and I'm seeing Cypriots, I'm like, oh, it just makes me feel relaxed.
I'm
you know
already
what I mean?
healing.
Yeah. When I'm there, it's just, it feels me like nothing else. It actually feels me like nothing else. It's one of my greatest blessings.
What's your favourite element of Cypriot land?
So, ocean.
Yeah.
Oh my God, definitely was a fish in a past life.
I say that as well. Like, honestly, when I'm in Cyprus, like, leave me in the sea from dawn until dusk, and it still won't be enough.
Oh God, honestly, it's just the best. The sound of it, everything.
Yeah, it's really amazing. It's such a privilege that we have it. Like you said, it's the most beautiful land, and we hope we can be a bit nicer to it and respect it more and appreciate what it gives us.
Yeah, and not just use it for what it can give us, but give thanks as well.
Absolutely. What does that mean in terms of giving thanks to the land? How do you give thanks? What are some of the things you can do?
Well, it's a really interesting question, because in our culture over here, we're completely secular and everything. We just believe in the material and we use this, that, forever. You know, in the West, we look at a mountain and we think, okay, what minerals can we extract from that? Whereas in other cultures, it's seen as something sacred, as a gift, right? And it's interesting because I've just come back from a conference, an ethnobiology conference, which is basically scientists going and working with indigenous people and understanding how they live with the land and stuff. God, if we lived like them, the world wouldn't be in such a state. But I think for me, it's literally before I eat my food, I think I'm grateful to have this food. When the sun rises, I think I'm grateful, thank you, sun. You know? Like, I went to a festival the other day and it was this woman, like, it was hot, it was sunny, and then it was cold, you know, it was going. When the sun came out, everybody felt so blissful. This woman, she was so soulful. She was on the stage, she was singing, she goes, "Praise the sun." I was like, "I love you." Why would you not say thank you? Like, of course, do you know what I mean? Like,
that's so nice.
Yeah, just acknowledge the beauty. If you see something gorgeous, acknowledge it.
Yeah.
You know, otherwise it just goes by, and what's the point?
Yeah, totally. You're so right. So you're currently doing a project in collaboration with Royal Holloway University and Kew Gardens, which is where you work, and then you have academics in Israel and Cyprus, and you're essentially dissecting ancient texts and research on herbal medicine. You're using Greek experts, I should say, and you're creating the methodology, focusing on ancient Cyprus. That is my very inexperienced, uneducated rundown of the research I've done on what your project is. So tell me about how it's kind of connected to Cyprus.
Okay, so basically, yes, I researched medicinal plants at Kew Gardens, and ancient medicines hold a vast resource of potential medicines that can be used today. So, for example, the drug for malaria called artemisinin was found by scanning 3,000-year-old Chinese medicine texts.
Wow.
They looked at symptoms that matched malaria, found the plant that was being used for it, put it in the lab, it didn't work. So they read the books and they looked at the traditional extraction technique, which was leave the plant in lukewarm water for a certain amount of time. They then tested the extract again, found it was active against malaria. Yeah. It went on to treat hundreds of millions of people and won a Nobel Prize. Wow. They would never have got that wisdom if they didn't look back at the ancient times.
God, that's amazing. You just don't get taught that?
No, you don't get taught
about that origin.
No, you're taught to focus on the future and obsess when really the answers, a hell of a lot of them lie behind it. It's about integrating the knowledge we have now with what we learned before that can step us into wisdom and further knowledge. Now, the problem is with botanical names is the common name can mean many different species. So lavender can be 16 different species. It's like me calling you Maria. Which Maria?
Yeah.
Right?
And here there's probably thousands.
Yeah, literally. Yeah, there's literally so many in my family. So what we're doing is creating a methodology so we can botanically identify exactly which plants are being spoken about. Right. We're focusing on a Cypriot text, but because the text was quite sparse in information, we're now focusing on an ancient text from Greece as well. Okay. A guy called Dioscorides, they call him one of the fathers of medicine, because he was the first person to actually write down some of the characteristics of a plant. So, for example, it's got 4 leaves, the flowers are purple. Yeah. Before, people just wrote the name. And what does that mean to us now? Not much at all. So it's an interdisciplinary team working with data scientists, philologists. The ancient Greek expert is actually German. Wow. Yeah. Ethnopharmacologists. We're working with a chemist who is an expert in burnt substances, because a lot of the medicines, they used to burn them. So we're replicating the recipes, putting them in the lab and seeing if they're useful for anything. Historians, archaeobotanists, all sorts. So it's been incredible. I feel so humbled and honoured to be able to work on the project. But what I'm really excited about is we've just got more funding, and what we're going to do is...
Wow, congratulations.
Thank you. We're going to go into the Cypriot community and record the medicines from our elders.
Right, okay.
Because they still hold so much knowledge, but it's dying out. Yeah, it is. And so what we want to do is record the knowledge and see, does it still line up for what they used thousands of years ago? And also, I think it's really important we record this knowledge either way, you know? So
absolutely. That's so lovely that you're doing that, and it has such a lovely generational element as well in terms of involving the older generation. Like you said, it is completely dying out if we don't do something about it. So that's so lovely that you're able to integrate that. And I mean, you're surely going to find out so much from all of these people. When we spoke kind of separately about this, you said that it was richly focusing on the ancient Cypriot text, and you assume that it was written by just like a common man of the land. And I love that, because to me it just showed how connected like Cypriot people of the land in the villages were and still are to it.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. So originally this guy is called John the Physician, is what we call him. But the reason we think, because a lot of the academic knowledge was passed down to people of higher classes, right? Because they could read and write and stuff like this. But this guy, he his spelling, the way he spoke, wasn't that great. We think he wrote a manual just for his village, for his people around him to share the knowledge. And we think that he didn't have a lot of money because of the utensils he was using, was just stuff that normal people would have in their kitchen. So we think he was like a man of the people, trying to record it for our fellow Gibrei.
That's so lovely.
Which is nice, yeah. And I just wanted to add as well, for this project, I've got some cards. I've got an email in the back. If any of you want to come through, contribute, we need as many of you as possible to share your knowledge of our plants and how they're used medicinally. And we're going to be carrying it forward, you know, hopefully doing a community centre or something. If you can just get in touch with me, then that would be incredibly helpful, because we need as many of us as possible.
Absolutely, yeah. Obviously I'll post kind of your details, and we have your cards, and we'll share it. Yeah, people, please get involved if you have any wealth or knowledge to share. That would be so great. We've spoken a lot about like herbalism, the field, and what we can learn from it. What would you say to people that want to learn more, they want to become more well connected and get involved, but they don't really know where to start?
A good question. Also, I wanted to also say olive trees. For me, you know, we were talking about the land earlier. Yes. I just feel so connected to them. Honestly, me and a book under an olive tree is my happy place. They're so beautiful.
They are.
Really gorgeous. When it comes to learning about herbalism, I teach at a school called Botanica, and you can either train to be a herbalist, which is a 4-year course, which I know a lot of people don't want to do. But also there's short weekend courses, and it just teaches you home herbalism, how to teach yourself at home. You can also follow my page, Laz The Plant Scientist. And also I'm co-editor for a charity, an educational charity about herbal medicines called Herbal Reality. If you sign up to that newsletter, we have knowledge from the best herbalists from around the world writing articles for us weekly. It's really an incredible resource, so I definitely recommend that.
Absolutely, we'll plug all of that. That's all really great stuff. You mentioned Laz The Plant Scientist, which is your own like educational platform, and you sell your own products, which tried and tested right here. I love the hair oil. It's great. It's great. It's so great. And you have rave reviews as well for good reason. What is your hope for kind of your own personal platform and for the products you put out? What's your hope for it, and what do you hope people will get from it, and how people will benefit?
Thank you. Thanks for supporting my business. So I've created Laz The Plant Scientist to bring plant medicines to the people, because a lot of the stuff that you can buy on the shelves are really not good quality. A lot of them don't even have any of the plant in. A lot of them are so expensive. So right now I've got plants for burnout, rhodiola, ashwagandha for anxiety and stress. I've got the hair oil if your hair's falling out. I've got lymph love tea to support your lymphatic system, andrographis pills for your immune system. I've got the meadow remedy for hay fever. And my plan is basically to keep formulating. I want to do stuff for burnout. I want to do stuff for depression, a more specific formulation for anxiety. I want to do stuff to help people's memories. I want to do stuff to help prevent neurodegeneration, like Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, dementia. I can't claim that any of these plants will cure that, but what we can do is look after our nervous systems from now to prevent things, happening in the future. And I'd love to be able to support people with so many different things. And what I want to do is create essentially an education academy where I'm just sharing the knowledge. My life for me, I want to study, create and share. That is what I want to do. So that's what I'm doing with my research. Laz The Plant Scientist is where I create and where I share. And I want to employ my family, and we all live halfway between Cyprus and halfway here.
I love that. That's such a lovely initiative, and it's so great that you're making it more accessible. And I think with Laz The Plant Scientist as well, you're bringing it to like the modern day, especially with the use of social media, is really great. And it's a great way for everyone, but especially I think young people, to kind of access it, because I think it's very easy nowadays. It's almost, with like capitalism, it's a bit of like a hot commodity at the moment to like sell like natural products, and you can go on like, I don't know, look fantastic and get like clean beauty and clean like products, but you don't really know what that means, and there's not like the research and the explanation with it. So it's really great that you can go into your platform. It's it's spelled out very simply. You can read it, you can read the benefits, you can read where it comes from. You just like know where it comes from. So I think that's really helpful and that's really useful.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And also the problem is there's so much greenwashing within the industry.
Totally.
You know, a lot of these labourers are not getting paid.
Yeah.
They're getting exploited. The plants aren't being sustainably produced.
Yeah.
A lot of them are near extinction now. A lot of them look like they're really natural, but they're basically pharmaceuticals in a natural looking pot. So you just have to be really careful. And I'm just talking about bringing old school herbalism back so we can live well.
Honestly, we just need to go back to the village, and that's always a running theme in a lot of the conversations I do with the podcast. When we think about like our heritage and our history, and so much of it is rooted in that sustainable, traditional way of life, so connected to the land. So I really hope we can get back there and bring some of it to the diaspora when we're in the middle of London.
Yeah, thank you. I hope so too, and hopefully I can source more herbs from Cyprus as well. That'd be beautiful. And take herbalism back to Cyprus, you know. I think a lot of the modern knowledge in the younger generation is they're using plants from all around the world that they've seen on the internet. And I'm like, no, let's not forget. Let's not forget.
Yeah, totally. What is your hope for the land, specifically Cypriot land?
I hope it doesn't desertify.
Yeah.
I really hope that, you know, some carbon capture technology comes forward and it doesn't cook the place, because you can see it's gotten drier and drier. I can see, you know, I remember being in the beach with my brother and he was like, there used to be seahorses here, hundreds of them, and there's none now.
Yeah.
So that worries me. I hope that people live with respect and don't leave their litter everywhere, and it doesn't become plundered by tourism and stuff like that. You know, it's a sacred haven, Cyprus, for me, so I want it to treat like that. I hope that the people have less stress. It's not always easy life there.
No,
I don't
it isn't
think.
at all.
It's like a lot. And I hope that we protect the land and don't cut it down, and we treat it well, and we can promote diversity in the land there, definitely. Yeah, there's a lot. I just want it protected.
Yeah, totally. It's so
I don't
important.
want it to all be cut down, and for what, like, you know.
It's such a fear, I think, with like tourism as well, as it, you know, I mean, it's always been like for a long time a tourist hotspot, but it's becoming so much more commercial. And I find that year on year, when I go back, it's like that one added bit of like commercialism and, you know, built up urban environment in the natural land. And it's always a bit of like a sting to the chest when I see it. So
it's a tough one, isn't it?
Because it's
like, I live in London, one of the most diverse places in the world, and I celebrate that. But at the same time, my village is getting industrialised so quickly, and the way of life goes with that. And I hope that Cyprus, that the people living there will still be able to grow their food, and people living in the cities will be able to have some land to grow their food and still feel connected. I really do hope that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I hope they use organic as well, and not pollute the land with loads of chemicals that are not needed, because Cypriot food has been thriving thousands of years, and I don't want to exploit that.
No, absolutely not. What is your favourite Cypriot food?
Chef d'Aliers.
Really?
Yeah.
Good.
And louvet.
Really? I really don't like louvet. I think it's a bit of like Marmite, you love it or hate it.
I think moussaka is really overrated.
Oh, totally. Like you go to.
Well, macaroni de fourneau is so overrated.
Do you think?
Yeah.
See, macaroni de fourneau is my favourite Cypriot food.
So yeah, no, moussaka I love. Macaroni de fourneau I probably don't eat it if it's there.
No.
I'll eat it if I have to.
If it's there. What's your like favourite, or what do you find the most beneficial like herb that is like originates in Cyprus?
Oh, that's a good question. I'll tell you a story. So I went to a herbalism class once, and a lot of herbalism is about feeling where the plants feel in the body. She gave us this plant, and we all tasted it, and we all felt incredibly calm and peaceful after. She didn't tell us what it was, but we had to say how we felt, and a lot of people said they felt just calm, peaceful. And at the end she said, okay, that's the olive leaf.
No way.
And she said traditionally, the pharmacology says it's good for blood pressure and blood sugar and stuff like that. But she said traditionally it's known as the tree of peace. So perhaps that's what you felt today.
That's lovely. I love that. God, literally olive trees and olives are the centre of our like culture. So that's so lovely that it has so much of a benefit.
Plants define culture.
Yeah.
We don't realise it, but they really do. It's not just, every culture has their own plants. And another brilliant one is Nigella sativa, mavrogogo.
Oh, yeah.
The black seeds that were the thing. That was used in these ancient texts.
Oh, really?
And part of my task at Kew was to look at modern research for it. And oh my God, they've been testing it for all sorts, from asthma. They even tested some of it for COVID, inflammation, arthritis. They did an experiment where they were people who were in war, and chemical gas bombs were used on them, and their respiratory system was completely messed up. So they had to have a lot of heavy medication after that. After using mavrogogo, they got to decrease their symptoms reduced. They could reduce the amount of medication they had to take, and a lot of them recovered.
That's amazing.
It's phenomenal. Obviously your toast isn't going to be a big enough dose.
Yeah, your granary bread that you get in like Sainsbury's probably, or whatever bakery you go to. Yeah.
But you can get a good extract of medicinal grade, good dose, and it's wonderful stuff.
And then you can sprinkle it on top.
Yeah, and it was used since thousands of years ago on our land.
I love that. That's so interesting. You just, all this stuff that you just would never know, and it's not until you do the research or you speak to people like yourselves that you find out. So yeah, thank you for sharing your wisdom and your knowledge. I have one question left, which is a question I ask all of my guests, and that is, what is your favourite thing about your Cypriot roots?
My family. Oh my God, I love them so much. I love how family orientated Cypriots are. There's nothing more important than love in the world, and I've got that in abundance, so I'm grateful.
Good, absolutely. That's the one thing you're guaranteed from a Cypriot family.
Yeah. Also, I love how loud we are.
It does help. It does help.
I find it really funny,
Yeah. I was going to say, we have all this great tech and mics, but I question whether we actually need it, because our voice boxes are enough.
Oh, also, sorry, there's so much I love.
No,
Greek music is the best.
Yeah, it
Greek
is.
dancing, when they dance with soul.
Yes.
It's the best.
Well, we'll see some of it now. I think they're going to start dancing.
Oh, I can't wait.
Yeah.
I can't wait. There's so much I actually adore.
Good.
Very grateful.
Well, thank you so much for coming on. It's been
Thank
so good
you for
chatting to
having
you.
me.
It's literally been so interesting. I feel like I've learned so much. You're such an encyclopedia of knowledge.
Oh,
so
thank you.
I hope people take something away from it, and people continue celebrating, preserving and loving our land.
Thank you very much. And as I mentioned, if anybody, if it's your yaya, your bapu, if you've got medicinal plant knowledge, even if you don't think it's much, please reach out to me at cypriotmedicines, medicines with an S at the end, @gmail.com. And let's preserve our knowledge, preserve our community. And Laz The Plant Scientist is my company, and Herbal Reality is a brilliant educational platform. So thanks so much. I absolutely love what you're doing. I've been redefining what being Cypriot means to me in the past few years, and I'm really happy to meet other Cypriots thinking about it too.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you so much to the Cypriot Wine Festival and Business Expo for the incredible opportunity. I can't wait to be back. I hope you enjoyed this and all of the conversations from the festival with my wonderful guests. I'll tag anything mentioned in this episode on Instagram and Twitter. You can find us on both @RootToVinePod. Please don't forget to give us a follow and get involved in the conversation. You can also leave us a rating and review. It really does help us. I've been Maria Christodoulou. This podcast is produced by In-Depth Creative and music is by Dunya. See you on the next episode. Bye.